When ultra runner Bear Lee can barely hang on, he works 1 mile at a time. Life and ultras are just a series of problems that need to be solved.
And then committing to it so that when you're faced with something, you've already made the decision.
This candid conversation on mental health, problem solving, and tips for running really long distances is sure to inspire and help navigate you through life's toughest challenges.
If you've made that commitment up front, grit is a byproduct of that.
Welcome to the Mean Grit Podcast. I'm your host, James Julian. I'm here with barely running, barely making it up this mountain, but we got up here.
We made it.
Hey, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It was a fun chance to kind of come up here. We're 2 miles up, about 2,000 feet of elevation.
Yeah, about that.
And had a chance to chat and get to know each other. But for the fans of the pod, give a little background of who you are and kind of what you like to do, what brought us together.
All right, I'm an ultra runner. I started ultra running maybe 4 years ago. Before that, I was really big into triathlon, and I've got some stories I can tell about that. But I really enjoy the ultra running community. The people in it are so amazing. And I didn't totally feel that in every other sport I did prior to this. But I love ultra runners. It's nowhere else can you be in a race and be on the side of the trail in trouble, nauseated, and have another runner stop and see if you need something or try to help you. Yeah. In any other race, they're just going to zip by you and be like, oh, great, I'm ahead of somebody. But ultra running, it's a really cool sport. But that's a huge part of my identity right now.
Yeah.
And I love it. It helps me with keeping balance in my life and just giving me purpose in life, just adventure out in the mountains. Like, this is what I love.
This is the studio. This is where I like to be. And one of the things that kind of drew me to your story is your focus on mental health. And we're going to talk about that today because I think we share a similarity, and we can dive into that of how ultras and being outdoors and running kind of help navigate that. And I think our goal today is normalize mental health a bit more and be comfortable to talk about it and bring it to more of a normalization and how to deal with it. Because I know a lot of people deal with that. And so I want to talk about that. But I just got back from Arizona and I went to the Cocodona 250 to volunteer and be a part of that. And that was something that you did last year.
Yeah.
Is that right?
2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago. So 2023.
Correct.
How was that?
It was a wild ride, for sure. And I went back last year and paced a friend.
Okay.
And it was grueling on both sides, being the racer and the crew. But that race, it's something special. It really is. Just the way they have built it into almost what I would call the Tour de France of trail running. They just have coverage. They're interviewing people as they come into the aid stations. It's just a really cool opportunity because we're there able to share our stories, and not just the lead runners, that they're talking to the mid-pack people as well. But that is a hard race. And when I got down there, it was 103 degrees. When I got on top of Mount Eldon and Flagstaff, it was 28 degrees. So you're dealing with extremes. And you think that you would make up time in the downhill sections of that. And so you calculate it out on your race plan. But those downhills are rough. It's like Arizona rock that you're tumbling over, trying not to break your ankle. But it was a life-changing experience for me, for sure.
I was assigned to the Crown King aid station to kind of help, live stream video there. And as I'm driving 24 miles on this dirt road, I'm seeing the sorrel cactus massive. And then you're right, by the time I get up to this mining town, it's cold. It was raining that day and it was rough. But there's just a certain vibe. And you mentioned a little bit about this ultra marathon where I showed up because I had this vision in my mind of running up and running along some of the greats in this, Courtney Dauwalter, Rachel Edgerton, Max Jollop, they were all there, Cam Haynes, and I was like, oh, I want to go run right beside them and film them.
Yeah.
And like, even though they had just come out of a gnarly rainstorm, they were just super happy to see somebody chatting, answering questions. And my question to you is, what led you to say, I want to run 250 miles?
That's a very deep question, because there are so many reasons. And part of it going back to mental health. People that struggle with mental health can probably relate to this to some extent, but there's times where your confidence in yourself is not the highest.
Yeah.
And I hear from other people, they're like, oh, you run 100-milers, and they think I'm this extremely confident person that can just jump in and do some of these gritty things. But I wanted to do something that really gave me a boost confidence-wise, and basically wanted to see where my limits were. And if you've probably heard it before, but if your dreams and goals don't scare you, then they're probably not big enough. And that scared me. Running hundreds, I was like, oh, I've done it before. I'd sign up for one, and it's like you get a little nervous, but overall not too bad.
Yeah.
Signing up for that, it freaked me out because I didn't know what to expect. I coached myself. I put together my own plan, pulled together my own crew, and I was just flying by the seat of my pants. And I made a lot of rookie mistakes, and I had since talked to Mike McKnight and Ben, and I was telling them like a recap because Mike McKnight won that year. He went and slept for like, I don't know, 6-7 hours.
And still won.
And then, because he wasn't feeling well, and then bypassed everyone and won. But I made the mistake going into it, being a rookie at that big of a race. I slept a total of 35 minutes the entire time, and I was hallucinating. I was seeing people's faces in rocks. I was seeing like wizards. I was seeing a lion with this gazelle in its mouth, and I'd like start to walk off the trail into the bushes, and my pacers would pull me back, like, what are you doing? And I'm explaining what I'm seeing, and they're just like, yeah, let's keep over here. But it was something that I needed for my confidence to push my limits and really see what I could do.
Yeah. Talk to me about what that does for your mindset. The other day I heard something on your Instagram. You were talking about kind of doing a hard thing to prepare you for the next hard thing. And just kind of like keep notching up these difficult things that's just kind of like arrows in a quiver that you're just building up this history of hard things.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of value in intentionally making yourself uncomfortable. And I know that so many people outside of this community would look at me and think that I'm nuts.
Yeah.
But when you boil it down, in school, we study for tests, right?
Yep.
We do assignments, and that preps us for our math test or whatever we're studying. All of us are going to have trials in our life. It doesn't matter who you are. There's going to be something that comes in your life that just rattles you and is so difficult. So why would we not follow that same pattern?
Yeah.
And prepare for it? Just like in school we prepare for tests, I intentionally put myself in uncomfortable situations in 100-milers, doing big things down in the Grand Canyon, Cocodona 250, those types of things, because when I get in there, it's not just a running event, it's not just an adventure, it's a problem-solving opportunity. Yes. Where my gut's not doing well, what can I do to get it back? I'm having a cramp in this leg, how can I get it back? I'm getting a blister on this foot, whatever it is, you learn to do that. And you learn sometimes to run on a blister for 70 miles. And it hurts every single step.
Yeah.
But it comes down to, again, that concept of we're going to run into trials in our life, so why would we not prepare for them by intentionally making ourselves uncomfortable? And I'm not saying that people need to go run 100 miles to get uncomfortable. It could be like start small. Just make yourself uncomfortable. Take a cold shower.
Yeah.
Like do something that's going to just throw you out of your zone and show you that when you get into an uncomfortable situation or into a trial, you can solve it you can figure it out and you're going to be okay and
Yeah.
come out victorious in a way of like, it won't
Yeah.
end you.
Yeah. I'm curious what some of your things that make you uncomfortable. Comment down below. What is the most uncomfortable thing that you've done or that you think you should do? Maybe it's talk to somebody, say hi to that stranger. But I agree. I remember, and we're going to kind of keep weaving around this like a mountain trail. I mentioned I lived in Hong Kong, and every summer my family would go back to the U.S. to visit family, or we tried to have them go back every summer so they knew what life in the U.S. was like. But I still had to work, and so there was typically every summer a 2 to 4 week span where I was just by myself, working and trying to survive without my family. And I remember riding on a train, and it is like everything that you can imagine a big city, just thousands of people crammed inside a small moving space. And I remember just like I was fine, I was healthy, and all of a sudden just getting super lightheaded and like I was going to pass out, and I had to get off the train, not at my stop, and just sit down. And I like my chest was pounding, and I'm like, what is happening? Like I was just kind of uncertain of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I saw a movie and somebody in the movie portrayed what a panic attack felt like. And I was like, holy cow, I was having a panic attack in that moment by myself, knowing that I was going home to an empty house. And being able to identify that and know like, oh, that's what that was, I was better able to the next time say like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm starting to have similar feelings. Now I can navigate that.
Yeah.
And on the way up, we were talking about a friend, you know, and you talked about normalizing it just like a broken arm. Mm. I'd love for you to kind of spend some more time and maybe reiterate some of those thoughts that you had about, you know, being able to really treat it more as, hey, it's just like a broken arm.
Yeah. Well, I deal with anxiety and depression. I know a lot of other people do in the world. And I know that everybody deals with it in their own unique way, and some have more challenges than others. And I think I feel a little guilty, and I told you this on the way up, that I haven't been as open as I should be about it. And part of it is because I think it kind of puts a negative light on the person. And society, I think, hasn't gotten to a point where we're accepting that mental health is a true condition that people have that is hard to deal with and is no different than what you just said, a broken arm. So as we're dealing with these mental health conditions, sometimes we start to open up about it and get shut down. And some of the comments that I have experienced as I've tried to come out and talk to people about my mental health is like, I'm having a rough day. And they can see that. And some of the comments I get back are, just be happy.
Yeah.
Like, stop feeling that way. And going back to the analogy of the broken arm, going through mental health struggles is no different than dealing with a physical broken bone.
Right.
But people don't see it that way. And if somebody is telling me during a mental health challenge and I'm feeling really down, stop feeling that way. If I were to go to somebody with a broken arm and say, hey,
come on, the sun's shining,
yeah.
Your arm should be fixed.
Yeah, like, don't feel pain in your arm.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to feel it. Like, and that's the hard part is I don't think society has gotten to that point where they understand that. And so I think a lot of us that do struggle with mental health are afraid to talk about it, and we put on a happy face just to get through the day because nobody, I can't say nobody, a lot of people don't understand what we're going through. And even when we explain it, if they haven't felt those same feelings, it's extremely hard for them to understand it. And so I really would love to see the day that we start to see more momentum in people trying to understand mental health and not just telling people, stop feeling that way, stop being sad, because just like you can't turn off the pain in a broken arm, you can't turn off the sadness like that.
And one thing that we talked about, and I relate to this as well, is kind of the relationship with loved ones and how they portray it. Because I know with, with my partner, it has been this, and this is going to sound very left field, but if I say I'm menstruating, then she's like, oh, I can comprehend, I can understand a little bit what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not feeling myself. I don't feel ambition to go and do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a failure. All of these feelings start coming in, and she's like, well, why not? You're doing so well. Like, you're so great. And it's like, I'm menstruating. Oh, okay. Well, do you need to go for a run? And then it's like being able to recognize that, both of us recognizing that this outlet of trail running and being out allows me to bring clarity and gives me time to, in a lot of ways, physically meditate as I'm running, and I get headspace back, and I come back and I'm just like this new person.
Yeah.
That I know not everyone has these relationships, but I'm lucky to have somebody say, hey, do you need to go for a run? And I'm like, yes, yes, I do.
Yeah. And I get so much clarity, as you just talked about. That's a big reason why I do this. I, years ago, went on to some medications, and I tried a few different kinds. And essentially, it put me into this state where I just felt numb.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't sad, but I wasn't really that happy either. And I just kind of felt blah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really there for my family and friends. And I thought, I just can't do this. But on the other hand, I was struggling before that. And so this space, running, nature, has truly like pulled me out of that. And a lot of people may claim like you're running away from your problems, maybe a little bit, but, but that's not the main reason. They may claim that, like, oh, you get a runner's high and it's just going to go away. And it's not really that for me. It's like you talked about, being out in nature, being able to move your body, being able to just like get this perspective. And we talked about it on the way up. And I feel so close to God when I'm out in nature. And it brings me into this perspective, like I told you on the hike up, that this world is so big. Like, we are looking around and there's valleys and mountains, and my problems in the grand scheme of it all are really small, and it really brings it into perspective, and I'm able to tackle them in that manner. And
I also, and I'm going to push back a little bit, because I agree 100%, but it also doesn't diminish the significance of problems that you might be facing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's important a lot of times, that you're right. Like, we are so lucky to be where we're at, but it doesn't change the fact that, hey, you still might be struggling, and that's okay. Like, everyone's going to struggle.
Yep.
Everyone's going to feel that. And so I think, like, giving yourself that grace to say, like, yeah, mine aren't big, but I still have them.
That's
They're still
true.
yours.
And they had to be acknowledged, like you're saying. But I have a story for you from Cocodona.
Cool.
That relates to what we were just talking about. So I was at the starting line of Cocodona. They start us off. We're running in this big group. We get maybe half mile into the race. And on the side of the trail, there's this orange sign stuck into the ground, and it says, only 250 miles left. And at that point, it's funny, like, because you're just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you go run by. Well, 125 miles into it, we're coming down Jerome. I was sunbeaten. I was chafing. My gut was not good. My legs were tired. I had a blister on my foot. And I was just didn't want to be there. And I'm coming down the mountain, and I even have a video that I posted on my Instagram that I filmed, and I'm saying, Cocodona 250 log, if I ever try to sign up for this race again, stop me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, like, I was in this state of not wanting to be there. So I come in, we finally get phone service. So we're kind of jogging along, and I turn on my phone, and it's ding, 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 getting all these messages. And I'm like, oh, this is what I'm going to need. I need to be uplifted at this point. Open it up. First message I read, it's from one of my friends, and it says, I'm tracking you. You're almost at the halfway point. Only 125 miles to go. And it wasn't funny at that
Didn't
point.
help.
Like, it wasn't like the sign at the beginning of the race. I was just like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make it in the state that I'm in 125 more miles? And my pacer that was there, he had ran 40 something miles with me. And he was like, I don't know how you're going to go further. He's like, I am done. Like, that terrain was so rough. And anyway, I was in a really bad state. So I came in to the aid station, and my wife was there, and she was just like, what's wrong? How can I help you? And she could tell I was like really down. And my pacer's like, well, he kind of read a text that didn't help out. And she was like, give me that phone. And she's like, no, I'm going to read text from now on to you instead of you having the freedom. But anyway, going to the whole point of this, I was in a really rough state. And what popped into my mind that saved me in that race and has since been something almost like a motto in times where I'm struggling with mental health or anything else in life, was stay within the mile. And if I were to continue to think I have 125 miles left, that would be the end of my race.
Yeah.
If I went 25 miles and thought I still have 100 miles, I'd quit.
Yeah.
So at that point, I really had to scale it back and just say, how am I going to survive this race? And it was staying within that mile. And so I put the blinders on. What can I control right now within this mile? I have a blister on my foot. I need to step off, take my shoe off, put some tape on it. That's the best I can do for now.
Yeah.
Like, just looking at that, where's the next aid station? Okay, next aid station's in a mile. How's my water? Have I drank? Am I taking electrolytes? Not focusing on the problem down the road, because if so, it's huge.
Yeah.
But if you're able to just one step, it helps you. So when you're fighting through problems in life, if you stay within that mile, you're able to problem solve with things that you can control rather than looking so far down the road that you feel overwhelmed and want to quit.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I remember that when I did my first 100, and it was, we're just going to go 1 mile, you know, because my crew was with me the whole time, which is wild. But yeah, 1 mile at a time. I think that's solid advice. If you were to define grit, I'm curious what your definition is, because I feel like you're beating around the bush. But if I just to tell me, like, what is grit to you?
So, if another concept that I live by is something called pre-decisional commitment, and I don't even know if that's like a concept in life. It's something that I came up with in my brain. So maybe some other philosopher came up with it, but it's all about deciding something in life, like, and then committing to it so that when you're faced with something, you've already made the decision. So when I come into a race, a 100-mile race, I've already made the choice that I'm going to finish that race.
Yeah.
So when I get that blister, it's not, should I quit? If I'm feeling sick, I'm not going to quit. Yeah. Because I've already made that commitment to finish it. So to answer your question about what grit is, if you've made that commitment up front, grit is a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
So as you're moving towards what you've already committed to, grit is what happens in that gap. It's just grinding away. It's taking that step on a blister. Yeah. It's getting your mind right when you want to quit and you're like, no, I already committed to that. And just, it hurts, but I'm going to take another step. I'm tired, I want to sleep, but I'm going to keep going. And so that's what grit is what's between what you've already committed to and what you're going towards and where you are.
I love that. I think that's perfect. I know that the sun is starting to go down, and we were sweating before we got up here, and it started to get chilled. Do you want to put a layer on?
I want to.
Go ahead.
I'm like so cold.
Yeah, put your shell on.
Okay.
We're back after warming up just a little bit to keep things going, but just a couple of things I want to talk about before we wrap up. So you've done the 100-mile races, you've done Cocodona 250, and now you've committed to Moab this fall. What are your thoughts? Is it a different feeling of, hey, I've already done 250, so this is just a different terrain, or is it similar, kind of that fear, scare type situation?
Yeah, there's definitely fear going on, and I think I needed the reminder, going back to like doing something hard that scares you, and using that as a platform to propel you to being able to learn and grow and figure out life. I'm definitely scared for Moab, because on this one, Cocodona was, can I survive 250 miles?
Yeah.
And I proved that I could. But for Moab, I am going into it with a more aggressive goal, with an actual finish time rather than just, let's see if we can survive this thing.
Yeah.
And so that's where it gets a little bit scarier. And 250-mile races are scary. Like, 100-milers can be scary too, but it's something I've been thinking a lot about. And another concept I live by, which I'm going to have to lean heavily on for Moab, is you've probably heard there's like a historical story of somebody who's coming in to conquer an island. And
you got to burn those boats.
Yeah, and that's where instead of giving yourself that outlet of, if they start to beat us and come back on us, then we're going to jump on the boats and flee.
Yeah.
No, you got to burn those boats, and that's where I'm at. I've signed up for it. I'm committed. I'm training for it, and it's going to happen, but it's going to be rough.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to see how it goes, and that'll be great. So, just to kind of wrap up some rapid fire, I like to tailor these to my guests, and so these are going to be a little bit more ultra centered. But are you a morning runner or night?
Morning.
Morning. So you like to get up.
100%.
Okay.
And for Cocodona, luckily I had a training partner, because of work and everything, that could wake up really early, because we did a lot of 2:30 a.m., 3 a.m. mornings in this exact area.
Yeah.
And in the snow, we didn't care. We were out here with the cougars.
That's awesome. What's your go-to trail running shoe?
I have two. So it's the Hoka Speed Goat.
Okay.
But I love the 4s. And I bought like multiple pairs, but so I can't find them anymore.
Yeah.
And so I have one more pair that I'm wearing out, so I don't know what I'm going to do after that. But also the Ultra Mont Blancs.
Okay. That's funny. I'm the same with the Lone Peaks. I've got a bunch of like older 5s that I buy. What's your go-to fuel?
Oh,
when you're running?
I try to keep it. It matters if it's a 100-miler, a 50-miler, or a 200-miler plus. So if it's a 100-miler, BPN Go bars, love them. They're so good. They're easy on the gut. They almost taste like an oat rice crispy, but good on calories. For 50-milers and below, probably Tailwind. So keeping it more liquid, and a little bit of that in the hundreds. But for 200 plus, burgers, pizza, whatever's there, like you're going slow enough in some sections that you're able to, and you really need to get different calories in at that point on a multi-day race. But
what's a typical recovery process for you?
So active recovery, huge. I know that a lot of times when people finish something, all they want to do is sit down and take the next week off. But the very night, like even after Cocodona, I went and walked around. And the next day on the drive home, we stopped multiple times, and I'd get out and walk like a mile. And I think it sounds weird to do that because you think you should rest, but it really gives your body that opportunity to heal and keep moving. But compression boots, huge. I have rapid reboots I use almost on a daily basis. Ice baths are huge, and just stretching, stuff like that. But active recovery, by far the most important.
That's awesome. if you were to run into your younger self, what would they be most surprised about?
Well, I hated running.
Okay.
So I even remember, quick story, but I was on the high school soccer team, and we would run this route. It was called the Old Gristmill route. It was a 2-mile route, and we'd run it almost every day just to warm up before we got into practice.
Yeah.
Many times I would get dressed in my soccer gear, go out to my truck, and I would drive around and pick up a couple of my friends that had decided to run, and we'd come back and just wait, and then we'd go, and I'd do anything to get out of running. And now how crazy is it that we pay hundreds of dollars to run these races? So
yeah, that's so funny. That's great. Well, Bear, this has been fantastic. I appreciate the time. It has been good. We're shivering. It's May. I don't know how many episodes I'm going to do outside where we're just shivering cold, but let's wrap this up. Follow Bear at Barely Running on Instagram. Anywhere else you want to send people?
I'm starting a YouTube channel. It's
coming out.
It's so small. I've posted literally one video, but yeah, at Barely Running, it's the best place to get me. But my YouTube is Chasing Life's Adventures.
Cool.
So
Chasing
that's
Life's
the handle.
I love it. Well, hey, I appreciate it, and we'll see Bear at Moab. Let's go.